This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Cabo Jim Schaller.
Welcome, Good Neighbors, episode number 201 of the Good Neighbor Podcast, Estero. Today we have good neighbors, Holly McFall and Melissa Jeda from SecureMark Legal. Welcome.
Hello.
Yeah, pleasure to get to know you and share with our community what you guys do over at SecureMark Legal. So I don't know who wants to start, but let's jump in by sharing a little bit about what you guys do.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. We are glad to be here. I am Melissa Jeda. I'm an attorney. Holly and I are the founding partners at SecureMark Legal. We are a boutique IP law firm that helps startups protect their brand, protect what they have built in their businesses and their name. And by doing this, we get to learn about a lot of businesses, meet a lot of people, and help them protect what they're worked so hard for.
Absolutely. And it takes a lot nowadays because a lot of people are jumping into their own business, but they don't really understand the backside of it. So it's good to have people like you helping them. So how did we all get involved in this type of industry?
Well, so Melissa and I met in bankruptcy court, actually. So we've been litigators on that side of things about, sort of businesses failing and, tearing down businesses and, kind of sort of the negative aspect of business. So we came together, with this idea of doing something happier, working on building up businesses instead of, tearing them down or working with them in their lowest points. We're hopefully, usually with them at their highest points, oftentimes in the very beginning where there's all the hope of, starting something new, or even down the line, the business has been around for years and is just getting around to cleaning up their act on the IP side. So it's more fun.
Absolutely.
So we came together to do that. Yeah.
Way more
Keep
fun
them in business rather than closing them. Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure. Is there one thing that you're seeing nowadays that's more, I want to say more frequent, but maybe more prevalent with businesses and why they succeed and why they don't?
Succeed and don't, not necessarily. A lot of great ideas, a lot of great businesses don't succeed. But one of the things that we've been able to help them with and push them towards that is making sure they can actually own their business name, making sure that they can own that brand. A lot of mistakes that businesses make, we can help protect and help, from the very beginning, or even if they've come to us after they've been in business for a few years, go back in and do a cleanup on their IP and making sure they can own it, making sure that they're not infringing on someone else's brand, that there's not someone else infringing on their brand out there. So being able to make sure your IP, your intellectual property, that being your brand name, your copyright, your creative works, you can help them work with a patent attorney if that's where they need to go to, making sure their business formation is set up in place. You asked in the beginning about making sure how they succeed and making sure they have a good foundation, their business plan is in place, and ownership is really where it is important for a business to launch from or even grow from, because without that IP protection, you can't grow. If you don't own your business name, you can't grow that name, you can't sell that business, you can't branch out and franchise that brand or other things along those. So that's really important to making sure that a business can succeed.
And then I'm sure there's a lot of businesses that, like you mentioned, get into business, but don't think about that stuff until the time comes where they want to sell, they want to grow, they want to do something. And they're like, oh, I didn't do that. And now you pretty much, you risk losing everything that you've built in essence. Mm-hmm. So are there any maybe myths or maybe misconceptions surrounding what you do that we could maybe clear up for our listeners?
So I'd probably say the biggest one is owning your name. Most people come to us assuming that because they own the website URL and or the name on Sunbiz, in Florida, that's our division of corporations. They think that because that is their LLC name or their corporation name, and that's the name they're putting out into the public, they believe that that's all they need because they have the certificate from the state of Florida. They think they own the name, and that's very much not the case. A lot of times companies even have a different LLC name than their actual brand name. So, logic would follow that there is an additional step that you would need to take in order to own the trademark in your name.
Filing a federal trademark. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Filing a federal trademark is the only way that you can actually own that brand name. And you can make sure that you have exclusive use to that name, that someone else cannot use that name to sell the same goods or provide the same services. You don't get to own it across the board everywhere, but you get to own it for the sale of your goods or the services that you provided. Think of like Dove chocolate and Dove shampoo. You're not going to own it in all realms. You got to own it, in exactly what you provide. But by filing a federal trademark and having a USPTO registered trademark, you actually own that brand name. You can stop other people from using it. You can make sure that you have exclusive use of it, and you can, if someone else is using it, you can prevent them, and you can file suit, or you can send them letters to get them to stop using that name. So they're not ruining just your name. Your name is everything. It's your reputation. It's all your goodwill that you've put towards this business and that brand.
And it's not just for big companies, because we all read about people like Disney doing the little guys that are, making Mickey Mouse T-shirts or whatever it may be, selling, giveaways or T-shirts, whatever, with the name on it, that they need to protect their name and image. That's something they've built. They just can't have anybody selling T-shirts or whatever they want on it,
Right. So, and that's the thing. No matter how small you are, that doesn't mean a bigger company isn't going to care about you or what you're doing. Even if you don't think that you have these big plans to become a big guy, that's not the whole point. Maybe you will in the future. That's part of it. But, like we're saying now, somebody else coming after you is something that you can't control. The way you control it the best you can is to put your protections in place as a preventative measure, sort of like insurance against that happening.
Absolutely. So do you notice anything, outside of our questions here, do you notice anything trending in the industry lately?
There's a lot of trends in industry names. There's a lot of trends in regards to like getting a name on file first if it becomes like a viral post or a viral name or something trendy in those regards, and trying to get your in first. One of the things with the USPTO and brand names is the first to use that name should have priority rights. So you can, if you do come up with a good name, remember, you've got to actually use it for goods or services. You can't just say, oh, I want to trademark this because it's viral. You got to have the intention, the plan put forward to say, I'm going to use it for selling this good or this service. But you can, if you come up with a great name, a word becomes popular and you want to make sure you could have ownership, you can go ahead and file an intent to use application with the USPTO. That means that you're not using it yet, but I intend to use it to sell these widgets. I'm going to be selling these widgets. My intention is to use it. It takes 9 to 12 months for the USPTO to come back and look at that application. And then if it's an intent to use, it makes it through the filing process. Before your registration, you got to show them how you're using it. You got to actually start selling goods and services. You got to start being able to put it out there in commerce, meaning not just in your state, available to everyone within the United States.
Now, does that follow the same lines? Because there's a lot of people that, what do you call them, almost squatters, that are buying like internet domains with certain names that are popular because they're hoping, well, I'm going to sell it to somebody who wants to buy it for multi-million dollars or whatever.
It's not quite the same. It's kind of the same idea because, like I said, you have to have a plan to use it. You have to have an intent. When you file that intent to use application, you've got to say what good I'm going to be selling, what service I'm going to be providing. And the description of that cannot be broadened once you actually decide it. It can be shortened. It can be made more specific, but you can't add goods or services to an application. You'd have to file another application, same name, additional goods or services. So it's not quite squatting. You do have to have an intent and a plan. And we work with companies that are doing it. We work with companies that are startups and they've got a great name. They love this name. They got to make sure they can clear it first, because worse than having someone else infringe on you is make sure that you're not infringing on somebody else. That's a very costly mistake that people make as they start a business. Like Holly said, I don't think I'm going to get big, but they're going to use the name. It's a cool name. They're not going to check it first, and someone else is using it. And then rebranding is expensive. Lawsuits are expensive. You got to make sure you can actually own that name. So come up with that great name, file that intent to use, have a plan to use it, and then we can go ahead and get that on file and protect that name and get that started. So that way no one else gets ahead of you, so to speak, as far as squatting goes.
Absolutely. So I know you guys are based down here in Southwest Florida. Do you cover a larger area than that, or are you primarily focused down here?
We cover the whole country, even sometimes the whole world, depending on the country that you're interested in. If we don't directly file in that particular country, we can always find local counsel there, but we can work with anyone, certainly across the United States and around the world.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, are both you guys from Southwest Florida originally?
I'm from Florida, but from the East Coast.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm originally from Chicago, but
Chicago. We're at Chicago.
I've been here long enough that I really am a Floridian.
Right.
I grew up on the north side in Skokie.
Okay. All right. I lived up in Schaumburg and Arlington Heights and got out of college and figured it was warmer down here. I'm out of here. I'm
no more winters for me. I don't tolerate it. No more.
Right. No snow shovel. What's that? I don't know what that is anymore. I use my beach sand shovel. That's what I do. So what do you ladies enjoy doing when you do get a moment of free time? I know your job is very demanding, but we live in Southwest Florida. Is there certain things that you enjoy getting out and doing?
We're both married with children. So our family life is just as important to us as our work life. So we like to say we have a balance, but we know I'm really a workaholic.
Pretty much. Yep.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, you guys, you're doing a great job of what you're doing. Is there one thing that you wish our listeners knew about what you guys do that maybe they're not aware of?
I think companies are scared to call lawyers. I think people are afraid that it's going to be really costly or they're going to get a bill for every phone call. One of the things that Holly and I pride ourselves on is we started this to become really a flat rate firm to help entrepreneurs. You know exactly your fee. You know what it's going to cost you up front. You know how it's going to work, what the payments are going to be. I want just the opposite. I want you to pick up the phone and call me and tell me about your new business idea. And I want to talk with you, work through it with you, and teach you how to protect that and what we need to do for next steps. I don't want you to be afraid to pick up the phone and call me. So because they're afraid of that fee, like it's going to be super expensive, they'll go with one of those IP or those, not IP, AI law firms or those paralegal like filing sites to file their trademark, which it doesn't get seen by an attorney. And then they end up having problems down the road. They got to call me to fix them. I'd rather speak to you at the front end. I'd rather you pick up the phone, call me, talk to me, set up an appointment, so that way we can meet with you and walk you through the process. Because in reality, like I said, it's cheaper than having to rebrand. As Holly said, it's insurance and protection for the future. So it's easier to do it now, and don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call us.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, how would our listeners go about contacting you if they had questions or wanted to learn more?
So our website is SecureMarkLegal.com. Phone number is 239-323-0702. And you can also find us on all the social media platforms pretty much.
Very good. Perfect. Any last words for our listeners?
We are happy to work through it with you, talk to you about what you've got, talk to you about how to protect your business, not just your trademark and your brand, but your creative work, your podcast, making sure you have all of your legal, contract space that you need to make sure your business can grow and thrive.
Very good. Holly, Melissa, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for being such good neighbors, and I hope to see you out in the community soon.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Estero. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpestero.com. That's gnpestero.com or call 239-296-2621.